85 inches.
It's
That's a
nice.
big TV.
Okay, we are at 10 o'clock, so I am going to call the January 10th meeting to order. We have all board members in attendance today. Could I please have a motion to approve the January 10th agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda has been approved. Could I please have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 7th meeting?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. The approval of the minutes from the November 7th meeting. We have a lot of people in attendance today, so if you don't mind, can I just start with you guys announcing your names, starting with Norma?
Norma Thomas.
Thank
and
you.
Investigator.
Heather Deakin, Yoshi Magistrate, Court Administrator.
Kaylee Lafferty, Fiscal Officer.
Teresa Old, Chief Deputy.
Greg Barton, Magistrate.
Aaron DeBoard, Court Manager.
Megan Hardy, Investigator.
Michaela Butcher, Portage County Guardianship Case Manager.
Patricia Lowry, Lawyer.
Thank you.
And we also have online Rick
Yes.
Squire from Catholic Charities. And Julie, you're the new person taking over from Sam McCoy, is that correct, from Direction Home?
That is correct, yes.
Excellent, great to see you, thank you so much, nice to have you here today.
Thank you for including me.
And do we also have the judge attending via Zoom?
No, that's this courtroom.
Oh, okay,
The judge
sounds
is
good.
in hearings today, so
Okay.
she won't be able to.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, do we have any public comments at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the financial report that will be presented by Diana.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. The first report that I have for you is the budget report through December 31st of 2024. That will reflect most of the expenditures that had hit the books by that date, although there were pending payments that wouldn't have been counted because the county closes out its system, like, what was it, December 5th, Kaylee? That they-
Correct,
Right.
December 5th.
So anything that we submitted after December 5th is going to get paid in the next year. But this reflects all of the expenses through that time. So as you'll see, our total revenue from all sources was $280 $280.50, which is comprised of Portage DD, Portage Mental Health Recovery Board, Area Agency on Aging, JFS, and the contribution that we got from Board of Commissioners. The total cash expenditures, because I'm just looking at cash, the in-kind's a wash, so it's mainly the cash we have to focus on. And the total cash expenses to date, $233,313,042, it's in the yellow at the bottom. So that leaves us a surplus as of the time the books were closed of $46,936. But again, that's going to get eaten into because we had the expenses that, applied in the next year. The desire all along has been to try and keep a cash reserve, on the books of about $20,000. So I think by the time everything gets paid, we'll probably be there. But I'll have more information once we finally get back into the records for January. And Kaylee seems to think that may be another couple of weeks or so before we're able to do that. So this is where we're looking at the end of the year. As previously noted, the accounts that we spent more than we had budgeted were for the caseworker position because we started Michaela Butcher early. We started May 1st instead of July 1st, so we could get up to date on our case needs. But other than that, everything else is at or under budget. So, we did pretty well for the year in terms of hitting our targets. And I'm happy to answer any questions on the end of the year budget report.
I have a question.
Yes, John?
Where are these 3 in-kind parking spaces located?
So 2 of them are, you know where the NDS building is?
Oh,
It's the
okay,
county
okay.
parking lot immediately behind the NDS
Oh,
building. There's
that's-
2 spaces there.
That's too far.
And then, yes, I know what you're saying. And then Michaela's is behind the donut shop, which would be terrible for me because I'd have to pass it every day. But she has more resistance than I do, but we do actually have 3 spaces that the county gives to
Okay,
us.
good.
But unfortunately, not enough to make walking to the court closer. Otherwise, I would be happy to give up my space to you. Any other questions? All right. Then let's go ahead and turn to the next one, which is the budget for 2025.
Don't put that in the minutes.
I will.
So-
I'll make sure to exclude that. The 2025 budget that you see in your report is the same budget draft that I presented to MHRB, Portage DD, and the Board of Commissioners when I gave the 3 PowerPoint presentations to those organizations. So based on this budget, we would take in a total of $290,000, and we would spend a total of $288,255.70. I will say, and I didn't feel comfortable adding it in at this time because it's still something that we're working out. Later in the year, once we start doing some of the other revenue things that we've discussed, like invoicing for administrative fees in the management of our guardianship cases, we'll add a line on income so that when those invoices get submitted and then those funds get collected, that'll be added in there. But because it's a process that we haven't started doing yet, that's not, on the budget at this time. But it's a process that's going to be similar to what we do with JFS. So JFS committed to $40,000 for next year. I'm going to invoice against that $5,000 for each of the referrals that we take that's covered by our MOU. In the same way, Judge Smith had committed to up to $50,000 for supportive fees for the indigent cases. We would invoice those per case on an annual basis. I think the local rule provides for up to $500 unless you're doing hourly tracking and submitting it that way, which we don't contemplate doing. So, again, that's something that's going to add revenue to the budget. We just haven't started doing it yet. And then to the extent that we add MOU referral fees for hospitals and nursing homes or care facilities, that would be another line that we would add for a similar kind of thing, where, it's on a as-received kind of basis. So this is what the draft budget currently looks like for 2025. Happy to engage in any further questions or discussions. Otherwise, I'd ask the board's approval so that we have a working budget for this year.
I have a question on the DOC.
Yes.
Can you refresh my memory when they're gonna get back to you?
Absolutely. So I did the presentation.
Yes.
It was very well received. They were very sympathetic. But because they were still waiting for the books to close out to see how much surplus revenue they would have from 2024, they're putting off a decision on what to grant and how much until late January, early February. But 2 of the commissioners spoke with me personally and both indicated that they were very much in favor of supporting our $50,000 request and acknowledged, the work that we're doing on behalf of the county. So I'm hopeful that we'll get all of that, but it is, of course, contingent on available fees, funds.
Okay, great, thank you.
And is that separate from what you had mentioned the judge put in?
Yes, it
Does that
is,
come-
because what I've got referenced here is just the contribution from the Board of Commissioners. That's why it says BOC under JFS. I would add a line for the court funding.
Okay, from her
Yeah.
specific budget, I see.
Right, and it's going to be, as I understand it, it's going to be out of the indigency fund and monies that the judge has added to the indigency fund to help for these referrals and the administrative fees. So how much would be collected is going to be dependent on how much we would apply to for the court for approval that the court approves, and then we would be able to get those funds.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Otherwise, a motion to approve would be appreciated.
Could I have a motion to approve the budget if there's no other comments?
So moved?
Second, please. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. The budget for 2025 has been approved.
Thank you. We did execute the memorandum of understanding with JFS for 2025. That was for funding the amount of $40,000. So we'll continue to invoice them. To date, we had, as of the last budget report, invoiced and collected $25,000. In December, I invoiced the remaining $9,000 and submitted that to JFS, which we still have to collect. But the entire $34,000 that they allocated to us, we did invoice for by the end of last year. Okay, so.
Diana, real quick, just a question on
Of
that.
course.
Do they require that you actually name a specific client to invoice that against?
The way it works out is there's a criteria of things that I need to present to them that's attached to the invoice. And that includes the referral document itself, which is a 2-page document that indicates who the client is and who the referral source was. Then we provide them with a copy of the docket for that case so they can see we initiated it, when the court appointment was, that the letters were issued, if we did a change of address because we moved them out of a bad residence into a safe residence. So there's several things, visitation logs, so there's like 4 or 5 different items that I attach to the invoice for each client that we submit for, so they have documentation that we did the work required to collect that $5,000.
The referral form, is that something APS gives you that they want us to fill out, or is that something you give APS?
No, the referral form is the standard referral form that we created so that our community partners had a specific form that requested specific information
Perfect.
when they turn over a client to us. And
Okay.
that's extremely helpful to us because, they have to provide birthdays, social security numbers, next of kin, all the things that we need to be able to file an application.
Okay, great.
Diana, I know you've given this to us already, but just in comparison of last year and this year, do you have a sense of how our numbers compare to last year in terms of,
What numbers?
excuse me, you didn't get to them yet, but in the guardianship cases, when you go through this?
Oh, you mean in terms of, well, as of this time last year, it was a much, much smaller amount of cases that, I can always pull that up and compare it, but I'm not quite sure specifically what you want to know about the change. You mean how many
Yeah,
additional?
I think it'd be helpful, and our board would love to see, because I've been telling about,
Sure.
like 23 versus 24, and how much growth there's been
Yeah,
in
I can do a
services.
chart that reflects that.
Yeah.
I can do a chart.
So John, are you talking about this last page?
Yeah,
of
sorry, I
the-
jumped
That's okay.
ahead.
So we could just get that in a chart form, like 23 versus 24 is what you're
Yeah.
talking?
Yeah,
I think that
it's
would be
very
helpful as
compelling.
Well, I can do 23, which was only a handful of months, because that's when we started,
Right.
24, and then keep it going through 25.
I think that would be very great.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in response to a conversation that Amy and I had yesterday, I did present this additional report to you. So this is the report that I keep on our internal drive that shows all of the applications that we have filed on. So if somebody is grayed out, like that first one, a female that was grayed out, that person passed away after we filed the guardianship. So wherever you see a grayed out line, that's somebody that we received a referral on and applied on, but then they passed away. So there's 3 people on this list. I think it's 3. Yeah, 3 people on this list that we filed applications for, but then they subsequently passed away. But Amy wanted to know where the referral sources were for all of the applications that we had filed. And so the last column on this chart is the referral source. So you'll see the gender of the ward, you'll see the age of the ward, you'll see the impairment type, and where they're residing. So this will give you an idea in terms of what the impairment types are for these wards, who referred them to us, what their age is in terms of that demographic and what their gender is. So this is most of the demographic information that I include on those PowerPoint slides that I present, but it's just in the spreadsheet form that we keep it because Amy wanted referral sources added.
Yeah, this is very helpful.
Okay.
The impairment type is really helpful too.
Right, and I do give you that summary, in those PowerPoint slides, so that everyone knows the community that we're talking about. And I reiterated that in our last meeting, that's why it's in the minutes again. But yeah, this is easy to produce because we already maintain it. Now, in addition to this, there's 3 other names that are pending that we haven't filed applications on. That's not on this sheet because that's in a separate tab on the spreadsheet. But of those, one is APS, one is Kent Fire, and I think one is, I forget offhand. Let's see. New referrals, so, oh yeah, one is Coleman, it's a UH Geriatric Psychiatry Hospital in Coleman doing the referral. One is APS and the other is Kent Fire. We did have a Portage TV one, but I think that one got pulled back because family was stepping up.
Are any of the other fire departments filing?
No, just Kent. They have a nurse who's part of their emergency management services. So it may be the nature of the way that they're structured, that they get called into situations similar to APS. And they get called into homes where people are obviously struggling and they can't keep up with their ADLs and it's deplorable conditions. And sometimes APS just won't get involved. And so they make the referral because they feel it's too dangerous for their resident to continue living in those conditions. One of the residents that they did refer, who we then got enrolled with Coleman, and he's now in a Coleman group home, was a young man in his 30s living in an apartment in Kent that was basically being taken advantage of by family members who had moved in with him, were taking his Social Security money, trashing the apartment got flooded, he got evicted, it was just a complete mess, which was why Kent Fire referred him to us, and then working with Coleman, we were able to get the guardianship and get him services. And I will say, if we get a referral, and I feel that it's appropriate to engage one of our community partners, whether it's Coleman or DD Services, as we have done with other clients, I will reach out and do that. And I had a discussion with Amy yesterday that if members of the community call us, and we obviously don't accept direct referrals from members of the community, I will try and point them in the direction of an agency that can help them, whether that's APS or Coleman if it's someone with mental health issues. And then that way they can get involved with those services, and then those agency partners can make the referral to us.
Just to kind of follow up on what John was talking, this isn't something I want to talk about in the president's report, but since we're talking about it now, I'm just going to talk about it. You had mentioned that the referral form is the GSB referral form. Do you use that with all of the agencies? Like every referral that comes to you, are you having them fill out a referral form?
Correct. Anyone
Okay.
that calls me that doesn't already have the referral form and says, we want to refer a case to you, I'll send them an email with the referral form, with the statement of expert evaluation form, and explain to them all the information that they have to give us. But most of the people now already have the form, and they're people that have been previous customers in terms of referring.
Are you asking them to secure the statement of expert eval? Or is
Yes.
that something we're trying to get?
Yes.
You're asking them to do it?
Yes.
Okay.
The only time we haven't done that, and we talked about this before, is when there's a situation with Kent Fire and the person that they wanted to refer to us, and it's a bad situation, but that person won't agree to get an expert evaluation, and that's what we talked about using the Cuyahoga form. We haven't actually initiated that yet, but that case is still pending and something has to be done with it, so it's something I'm gonna tackle, sooner rather than later. But yes, for the most part, every nursing home referral, every agency referral, whether it's Portage DD or Coleman, or APS, they fill out the application for referral, and they get the statement of expert evaluation completed and submit both to us at the same time.
Okay, great. I don't know that I've ever seen that referral form. Maybe you sent it to us a while
Email it
ago.
to you.
When you have a moment, I'd just be interested in seeing
Sure.
what it looks like.
It's a 2-page form.
Great.
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
So what happens if a client refuses to be evaluated?
Well, yeah. So we've had this discussion. There is a provision for that in the Ohio Supreme Court rules governing guardianship cases that allows someone to submit a statement to the court saying they need an expert evaluation, but the prospective board is refusing to do it, and then basically ask the court to order the person to be examined. Cuyahoga County has a specific form in their public guardianship forms for that purpose. We don't have that kind of form, but we've had that discussion with the court as a possible avenue to pursue when we hit those situations. So there are some logistical things that have to be worked out, but if there are cases where someone's in a dangerous situation, you don't want to wait until they've had some horrible thing happen and now they're in a hospital in a much worse situation than if you acted sooner. And so that's what we want to try and avoid. But yes, there will be some people where, it's impossible to get the expert evaluation.
And then who is credentialed to do that evaluation? Does it have-
If the court orders it, it gets handled by Summit Psych, So they
Okay.
get sent out in the same way that they do the evaluations
Right.
for the criminal court.
NGIs, yes,
Right.
okay.
But it has to be signed by a licensed
It has to be,
physician
yeah.
or
Psychologist
Right.
or licensed MD.
Right, right. And I've roundtabled that with some other courts as well. Those are difficult cases, really difficult cases, right? Because even if the court orders it, how do you physically force them to show up, right? And go to the evaluation?
Although often, when you have a court order, that in and of itself is
Usually,
persuasive to
yes.
the person. So,
Right.
you know, more
Right.
often than not, because they don't want to get in trouble, you know, people will be responsive to that.
Right.
Whereas their family member trying to get them to go to the doctor, they tell them to go consult.
Yeah. But
So
it's just-
can a regular, so is it a PsyD and a MD psychiatrist, or can a regular MD?
A regular
not
MD can do it.
regular MD can
Yeah.
do it.
For example, we had Woodland submit an application a couple of months ago, and the expert evaluation, I didn't notice it at the time because it's always signed by the same doctor, but they had a nurse practitioner sign it because that doctor wasn't with them any longer, so I sent it back to them, and they had their in-house MD sign it rather than the psychologist, so. Okay, so, in terms of the operations overview, you've got that attached for your reference. That shows you, that as of the end of December, we had a total of 69 referrals since we started doing business. We have filed applications in 66 cases. We currently serve as guardian for 56 wards, 55 in Portage County, 1 in Stark County. We did file our annual statement with the court stating how many guardianship cases are under our control, since anyone that has more than 10 cases is required to do that annual filing every December. We have 4 hearings pending, so we don't have a lot of hearings out in the future. And some of those are probably gonna have family members appointed.
Great.
We have 3 active referrals where we haven't filed the application yet. But I know one of them will be filing shortly because it's a Pullman hospital referral. And then in terms of our assisted outpatient treatment, we do have 1 active case in that area. So in November, we conducted 65 in-person visits with wards. December it was 90. We drove 834 miles visiting wards in November, 919 miles in December. The total active public guardianships, these are all of the court's cases that have a public guardian that's either our agency or an attorney that's been appointed by the court. That's currently at 84. And of those 84 cases, we are the guardian of 2/3 of them now. So a lot of those cases have gotten referred to us because either the attorney was withdrawing, the family member was withdrawing, or the court determined that the guardian wasn't carrying out their duties, and so they removed them and then referred it to us. The total number of adult guardianship cases, total in the county is 613 as of the third quarter report last year. That's all guardianship cases, the public guardianship cases and the ones where family members are guardians. So this is the overview as of the end of December. Any questions on that?
Oh, go ahead, please.
Why was there such an increase in visits from November to December? Do you know?
Well,
Was it just a fluke? Was it the holidays?
No,
or-
some of it was the holidays.
Okay.
We make a point of going to see every ward, taking them a Christmas card, and then we get a big plastic candy cane that's got either Reese's Cups or Hershey's Kisses in them. And, you know, it's just a little something to give, to wish them happy holidays. So some of these people we'd already seen during the month, but we go to see them again.
Okay, thanks.
And I was just wondering, so we can have, someone can be under a guardianship order and an AOT order, and maybe that's
Yes.
a question for Magistrate Gayeski.
No,
if
that's absolutely the case.
If it's warranted.
Yeah, for example, matter of fact, this is the most often I've seen it. So we have a guardianship on someone, they have a kerfuffle with the justice system, so they've got criminal charges, maybe then they get sent to North Coast for a determination of criminal competency. They decide that that's not gonna work, so the court, the criminal court, to dismiss the criminal charges, wants to know they're on some kind of civil commitment to make sure that they're not gonna be causing problems again. So an affidavit will get filed to initiate the AOT. And so, yeah, they'll have the probate court already has jurisdiction of them as, you know, guardianship case, and then they take the additional oversight under the AOT, which gives everybody the additional tools needed to make sure that the ward stays on track, takes meds, doesn't violate the law, and everything hopefully improves going forward. It certainly has worked with the one that we have right now. We're having enormous success with that. And we're hoping to get the charges dismissed.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Do not.
All right, so I had hoped by today I would have the draft MOU and letter for care facilities ready for you to look at, but a lot of stuff happened in December and there just wasn't enough time between Thanksgiving and now to get that done, but I will have that for you. I'll send it out before the next meeting, just so you can look at it, and then we can talk about it at the next meeting. And I haven't had any new nursing home referrals anyway, so it should still be timely. Then lastly, as you will recall from earlier discussions, we had approached the Ohio Supreme Court several months ago seeking an advisory opinion with respect to the authority of the executive director to do filings on behalf of the agency. And at the same time, there was one of the probate courts, I think it was in Montgomery County, that had simultaneously approached the board on the unauthorized practice of law for a similar opinion. And so based on both of us asking those questions, the board did decide to take up the issue. It rarely offers advisory opinions, but because there are 13 counties that now operate through GSBs, and of those 13 counties, some have attorneys that are licensed in Ohio, some have social workers as the executive director. Only one, Franklin County, has an attorney on staff. I'm an attorney, but I'm licensed in Arizona, not Ohio, so there was a broad range of counties operating, and urged the board for continuity and guidance to let us know what it thought was appropriate. So based on that, we had probably an hour-long Zoom meeting with the advisory committee on these issues, answered a number of questions, provided documents, and then after a couple of months in December, they came out with the advisory opinion that you see before you. And so the questions presented were whether council, when an application for appointment of guardian is filed by a corporation, and there are subsequent filings made after the court guardian is appointed, is representation of counsel required? And then our question was, as an executive director acting on behalf of a guardianship service board in relation to all guardianship matters permitted under RC 211101, to initiate guardianship proceedings with the probate court and to discharge any post-appointment duties required by the court, able to do those activities without constituting the unauthorized practice of law. So after a very extensive 11-page analysis, it basically confirmed the way we were operating, which is, you know, we go ahead and make those filings without engaging in the unauthorized practice of law unless we feel like there's a contested proceeding where representation is needed because witnesses are going to be called or there's going to be contested hearings. So in those types of pleading matters where it's a contested matter, and we told them that we do retain counsel in those matters anyway. So it seemed like the practice as we have been engaging in it was fine with the advisory committee, and so that's what this opinion reflects. We have shared it with the other GSBs because when we talked with them about it, they were interested in seeking the same kind of guidance. That's pretty much it for my director's report. I know, Amy, there's some issues that you wanted to bring up, so.
Yes, there are just a couple things that I want to address. First and foremost was the referral source, and you've answered that question because you told me that there is a current referral form that we're using on all of those cases, and just wanted to make sure that we were, that we had some type of procedure in place for that. You know, making sure that we're taking the referrals from the funding sources, and giving those referrals obviously the priority. We had talked about caseloads in the past. I think based on the numbers where we're at currently, it does not appear that the caseworkers are working outside of those parameters. So
Okay.
as long as we continue to work within those parameters, I am fine with that. When it comes to, excuse me, the specific caseworkers and the visits of the wards, one of the issues that the boards was concerned about is that we wanted to make sure that the caseworkers were not overextending themselves in visits that were more than, I guess, needed under the circumstances. So in the past, I know we had talked about when we started this organization that we were gonna try to have the caseworkers see the wards once a month. I think moving forward, if our numbers stay where our numbers are, that if the client is stable, that we could pare that back to once a quarter, which is the requirement under the statute, unless there's obviously some type of situation that needs to be addressed, right? There's a medical concern of some situation, you have a client, you know, that, I don't know, is on hospice and needs, you know, a medical decision to be made or something like that.
And even if we don't physically see someone, we have case plan care conferences
Yes.
with the facilities telephonically or
Yes.
through video conference
Right.
once a month for
Right.
most of our clients.
Right.
So,
Okay,
but as I mentioned to you yesterday, Amy, our current 56 cases, because we have one staff member who's going to be out on leave for a period of time, Michaela and I have divided up the cases such that we're each looking after 28 cases, which we have calendared now, where we can see 8 clients a week, basically no more than 2 afternoons worth of visits. And that more than allows for enough time to see all of our wards. So that's what we're currently doing right now, and it seems perfectly doable. So I think we're comfortably within our parameters.
okay. I just know that puts you and Michaela almost at the highest, almost at that high threshold, right? Because we had talked about capping it
Sure.
at 30. So if we get, I think you said there were 4 pending applications? 3.
Well, 4 pending, but 3
3.
that are really gonna be acted on.
Okay,
eventually.
so, but we're only in January,
Right.
right? So, kind of, I just want us to be conscious of those numbers. Like, we
Of course.
might be at a point where we might have to put a hold on referrals if we get to a point, like, I don't want you guys into the mid-30s, high 40s.
Totally
Not-
understand.
It could happen, right? I'm not saying that that has been the way our numbers have gone, but we've had such great success, and we are now establishing a name for ourselves in this community that people want to come to us and use our resources. And
Right.
the last thing I wanna do, and I tried to explain this to Diana yesterday when her and I had a phone call, the last thing I wanna do is overwhelm Diana or our caseworkers with too many cases.
And I share
Right.
that concern,
So-
you know. As I also mentioned to you though, unfortunately, as is the nature of our business, 2/3 of our clients are over the age of 62. I've got 6 people on hospice care right now, and 2 of those, you know, are really in end stages. So, yes, we'll be adding cases, we'll also unfortunately be losing some cases, but
Right.
that's the ebb and flow of our.
But I don't like this, because we've only lost 3 since we started. So that's not, it's not good. I'm not that saying we wanna lose
Yeah.
clients, I'm just saying, I think they're coming on way faster than they're leaving,
I
right?
understand.
Yeah, okay,
Quick question,
yes.
what is our present capacity with our current staff?
So the other GSBs all range in caseloads from 20 to 40. You know, we started out at 20 because it was a lot more work getting people up to speed. But then now that most of our cases are stable and it's not, you know, the overwhelming thing of juggling like 20 brand new cases all at once. So we're operating between 25 and 30 for our caseloads right now. Between the 3 of us that had it down to like 23 for one of the case managers, 20 for the other, and then I had like 10, you know,
which is
or
ideal for
9.
us, right?
So, you know, when we're at full staff, we're well within our operating parameters. It's just that because we have an unusual situation right now where we've got a staff member out until the 3rd week in March, you know, we're doubling up some, but that's not our long-term operational thing, and so, yeah.
So we could take on as high as 90, or is 70 ideal?
Well, I don't want to be carrying a full load of 30 cases, but, you know, if the two case managers have 30 each and I have 10 or 15,
Okay.
you know, we're looking at 75 right there, and I think it'll be a long time before we hit 75.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know we had talked about this a little bit at prior board meetings, but maybe you could just share with the board, Diane and I had a conversation yesterday about this. We talked about it at the beginning when we were talking about the budget and the line item being added for fees.
Yeah.
So I know, John, at some prior meetings, you had asked like whether we were able to recoup fees, right? Not
Administrative fees.
correct, for actually being their guardian, right? So the local rule provides that we can take $500 a year for the services.
Guardian of the person.
Guardian of the person services. So Diana and I had a conversation about once a year, her kind of bulk filing all of those applications, saying, okay, in 2024, we served as guardian, so in January of 2025, we're gonna ask to be paid that $500. And that, I believe, is the money that would be coming out of the indigent fund that the judge has set aside for us.
Additional funding.
For additional contributions,
So,
right?
as I explained it to Amy yesterday, and I mentioned earlier, I'm required annually to file this report because we're the guardian of more than 10 wards. And I did file that in December, it was showing the court that at that time, we were the guardian of 55 wards as of the end of December 2024. So based on that, I told Amy that I thought it was reasonable then, starting in January, to file for applications for annual administrative fees for the cases on that list that were indigent. And so that's the plan that I was gonna pursue. And at 500 each, you know, for sake of argument, if we had 50 indigent cases, that's $25,000.
And for the ones that are not yet indigent, because let's say they have a small
Right.
amount of money in a checking account, $5,000 or whatever it is, and Diana files an application with the court to have those funds released and transferred to their personal needs account or their rep payee account. In those situations, even though they're not indigent, we would still file for the court to be paid $500 for our,
Collected from the estate.
and collected from the estate.
Right.
Then, once they become indigent, which they would really relatively quickly, then we could apply for the indigent $500 a year fee as
Right.
well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And we do
Yes.
have some estates that are huge. We've got 2 wards that have assets, you know, approaching $2 million. So those ones, I'll file the applications to the guardian of the estate. So whenever there are guardians of the estate, I'll file the applications for approval by the probate court and then seek the payment from the guardian of the estate.
So is this a one-time fee, or is this an annual?
I believe the local
Annual.
rule
Annual.
allows it
Okay.
to be collected annually. Is that correct, Heather?
The local rule allows for $500 per year
Okay,
for serving as guardian of the state for the full 12 months.
okay, thank you.
So if she's gonna do it every January, that's where it gets a little funky. If she was appointed in September, we will not approve that 500 in January. She has to have served for at least 12 months.
Okay,
Right, but we were appointed as guardian for several, over a dozen in 2023. So for those, we would be filing the applications starting in January, and she's right, on a rolling basis,
Okay.
then we'd be picking up
Yeah.
the others after 12 months had elapsed.
I just wanna be clear,
Could
it's
we
like
file
for
it at the
1
time
year.
we file the annual
Yes.
report, right? You have to file an annual report for the board.
No, it's every 2 years for the annual report. The
It's 2
statement,
years in
yeah.
this county, okay.
And sometimes the statement of expert evaluation, if it's not a mental health case, has been waived.
It has been waived.
Right, so,
So you wouldn't have.
yeah,
annual
it's better to
appointment.
just do it on the anniversary date of appointment.
On the anniversary of
rolling-
appointment.
I mean, when
Okay.
the letters were issued, basically.
Got it, so anniversary of
Thank you.
appointment.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you had mentioned this, Diana, by the next board meeting, hopefully you'll have an MOU in place, or for us to review
Yeah.
for the nursing facilities.
And a cover letter that accompanies it, so they know why the policy change
Okay,
was initiated.
so the thought there, just so that we're all on the same page again, is that the nursing facilities would pay a per case fee.
Per referral.
Per referral fee.
Right.
It would be for all new referrals, this
Correct.
wouldn't be for ones that we currently
Correct.
have. And then after they pay their fee, most of them are going to be indigent wards, then we would add them to that rolling annual fee as well, but we could recoup some money at the onset of the application.
And how much are their referrals?
So, We need to vote on that. I don't know that we ever really voted on that. My notes say 1,500. I wanted more,
Yeah,
but
my
I was getting
preference,
some pushback on that.
my preference is for 1,000 because I don't want it to be a disincentive to anyone referring a person that needs the assistance of a guardian because their corporate office won't pay, you know, a $2,000 fee. For example, we've got a ward right now that we were just appointed a couple of weeks ago. They referred her to us because she needed to be put on hospice care. There wasn't anyone to approve it. She's literally at death's door. You know, it's not like they're gonna have this client for a long period of time and be collecting megabucks on it, but they were doing the right thing, trying to get someone in place that had legal authority to help make decisions on their medical care and hospice arrangements. So, you know, I don't feel that it's always for economic reasons that nursing homes make these referrals to us. Most of the time it's because they have a ward that needs decisions to be made on their behalf and there's no one able to do it. So.
And are these nonprofits or for-profits?
It's a mix of hospitals, but I mean, the situation is the same where, you know,
For-profit?
Sure. Yeah.
How much were you hoping for?
Well, I wanted to treat them like an APS case originally. When we had this discussion months and months ago, I wanted to treat them like an APS case. We bill APS $5,000 per ward. I wanted to charge them that. Here's my just.
and let me just say, if we did something like a high fee, then it kind of straps me in terms of moving them out of that facility. Because, you know, they paid us a fee to keep them at their facility, you know, in
Well, they've
principle.
paid us a fee to do the
I
guardianship
understand,
application.
but it does create a dilemma for me.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, they could have anybody apply to be their person's guardian. They just don't want the hassle of doing it.
No, that's not true, Amy. In most of these cases, there is no one else to do it.
Well, no, what I'm saying is they could have somebody from their facility apply if they wanted to. They could have a social worker apply. They could have a community partner apply, right? They're calling us because we are an available option for them.
I think it's a conflict of interest if they try to have
social-
somebody
like social-
internally.
Can I ask
That's
a
huge
question?
conflict.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question, please? Court clerks can add fees onto court costs, but they are limited to be able to demonstrate that that fee is in line with what they need to cover that court cost, except maybe special projects fees. Can you, as a government agency, can you support $1,000 application fee
Well, in
with the
previous-
actual expense to
Okay.
apply?
So in previous courts where I've worked, the public fiduciary presented to the probate court a fee schedule, and then the probate court adopted the fee schedule as applicable per se reasonable fees to file an application, to conduct an annual
But
report.
have we done that for this?
No, we
this
have not.
high-
The
number that
analogous
we're
provision
pulling?
here is the $500 annually for, you know, administrative fees. So I think that's another good point though, which is if the probate court is saying $500 is fair for annual administrative expenses for a guardian of the estate, and then we're saying to a nursing home, well, but we want you to pay $200 or $2,000.
The issue I have with the nursing home is they're not a referral, they're not a funding source. So we're taking referrals from a non-funding source.
And we had this discussion yesterday, which was the reason that I pitched the BOC and JFS for them each to contribute what they did, which is a total of $90,000, was to cover the cases that aren't mental health and aren't DD, that are mostly the dementia cases that come to us from the nursing homes and from the community. And so that $90,000 was pitched to BOC and JFS to cover these other cases for us to take them on. And in fact, the MOU from JFS includes other community referrals that aren't just APS, that I can invoice for.
Like, give me an example. What would be another community referral that's not?
Camp Fire, the Camp Fire case, which was a community referral, someone that needed the guardianship, you know, had the DD impairments and mental health impairments, but it's not an APS referral because they're under age 60, so it can't be an APS referral.
Right, but Kent is I would see them under the Board of Commissioners umbrella, right? Because they are a government
Right.
agency.
But there's
An
nothing to-
independent nursing home isn't, they are a for-profit making money, and the reason they want us most of the time, it's not going to be, you're like, this person's dying, we need somebody to put them on hospice. That's, I think, an outlier case. It's, we need somebody appointed to be making some decisions for these people so that we can continue to keep them here and get paid.
Well, the majority of the cases aren't ones where they've been living there and now they're incompetent, 5 years later. The majority of them aren't that, although we do have some of those. Lots of them are people that have been living on the street or whatever, living in homes or apartments. It's no longer safe for them to return there. So we've got to, dump them in a nursing home, and I need the nursing home to then, do the referral so we can get it set up, so.
But could that referral come from somebody else? I mean, how did you get that? You didn't get that person from the nursing home, and you're trying to place them in the nursing home. I'm talking about people that are in the nursing home already,
Well, but
and
Amy,
the
a
nursing
good
home
example
calls
of that
us, like
was
they
the-
used to call Norma.
A good example of that was the case that I got as a sort of quasi-referral from Judge Smith, and the person was in a psych hospital, couldn't live in their apartment anymore.
Now, I'm talking about nursing homes.
Hold on, I'm getting there. They had to get discharged someplace, so they got discharged to Wayside, which I helped to set up, and then Wayside submitted a referral fee, which is a nursing home, to get them under guardianship services, because there was no one else to be able
But
to
that
do it.
came to you before they were in the nursing home. I'm talking about people that are in the nursing home.
I didn't get the referral until I got it from the nursing home. I facilitated getting this person into a safe placement, working with the hospital, but I actually got the referral from the nursing home.
So they were in the nursing home, and then they called us and said, we want you to be the guardian.
No, they were
Okay,
in a
that's where
psych
we're having-
hospital.
That's where we're having the disconnect. I'm talking about people that are dropped off by their family members in a nursing facility, and now the nursing home used to call Norma.
I haven't had any case that fits that scenario. I have cases where people get hospitalized because whatever happens to them, and now the hospital feels it's no longer safe for them to go back home, so they go to a nursing home, and then the nursing home asks us for an appointment.
But that's what I'm talking about. The nursing home is making that call to you, not after you've placed them in the nursing home. I'm talking about them, because once they're in a nursing home, they're pretty safe, right? And safety is usually
Well, but
not
they're
an
not,
issue.
Jamie. They need people to help.
I understand that, but they still, I mean, they're not going to let the person be harmed because they don't have a guardian. I don't think it's as detrimental, right? So my question is, out of the 23 that you said were nursing home referral cases, right? Were those all people in nursing homes that would have normally called Norma and said, Norma, we need a guardian, and then Norma picks up the phone and calls me or calls Pat and says, hey, would you take on these guardians? Those are the ones I'm talking
Well,
about.
I'm assuming that's a rhetorical question, because I don't have a breakdown of 22 cases as I
Okay.
sit here right now.
Okay,
Okay, so, but I will say that the majority of the time when this happens is, I've got somebody that's in UH Portage, for example, and I get a call from the social worker at UH Portage saying, hey, they've got to be discharged, the hospital's determined they need a guardian, we're putting them over at Woodlands, you know,
I don't see
Work
that
with
as a nursing
Woodlands.
home referral.
well,
So Woodlands
But it is.
Can I ask?
the
so-
referral form comes from the nursing home, it doesn't come from UH Portage.
I can see that, but okay.
So is Woodlands not going to admit them without a guardian? Is
No,
that what you're
Woodlands
saying?
admits them as a
Okay.
discharge from the hospital because
Okay.
the first 30 days are paid for by Medicare,
Okay,
if they're over 66,
all right,
or Medicaid if they're indigent.
okay.
But then, long-term, they need someone to apply for the Medicaid application, they need someone to give medical consents, they need someone to, you know,
Are they
plan
allowing the
for.
guardian of the person to sign the Medicaid application?
Sorry?
Are they, yes, they are, they're allowing the guardian of the person to
I
sign the
don't
Medicaid
sign it,
application?
they signed the application, but I authorized them becoming rep payee, because we can't do rep payee. And somebody has to collect the
Right,
social
so they're
security.
financially benefiting from our services, that's all I'm getting at.
Well, and I
It's
think
Medicaid.
also,
It's not private pay.
I understand that, but it's a big business.
Can I ask one thing? How many guardianships do we rely on these nursing homes how many people do we rely on these nursing homes to accept without problems? That if indeed you charge them $2,000 to apply, that we would then have problems, they'd just say, forget it, moving
That's-
on down the road.
That's a
We don't
question
have
that's
enough-
too much in the weeds.
Yeah, I don't think we know that
Okay.
answer. I don't think we know that answer. And maybe that's something we have to just test the waters. Maybe we have to put the MOU in
But I
place
think you
and
have
test
to
the
look at it
waters.
from the standpoint of, you know, $2,000 isn't justifiable as a referral fee. If it only costs us 10 hours worth of time to put the case in place, how do we justify that? You know, how do we justify trying to take more money than we're entitled to from a nursing home, especially if we're collecting the $500 from the indigency fund after a year? And, you know, we've gotten the $90,000 from JFS and the Board of Supervisors to take these dementia cases that aren't covered by MH and DD.
Well,
How much does a referral, a mental health referral cost based on what, you know, the MHRB is giving or DD?
You don't want to want me
Yeah.
to share with you the number of hours that I put into a lot of the mental
I'm just curious
health cases,
because,
John.
you know, because you had mentioned how much it would cost to that agency.
Right.
I think the reality we face as the guardianship board is we're at barely 70% capacity, and so where's that 30% of funding going to come from as we, you know, hit 75 active cases?
So I can do a cost, of course, it's more additional work and reports, but I can do a cost breakdown of, you know, how much on average hours we put in to a case in terms of the initial interview, filing the forms, going to the court hearing. You know, with the mental health cases, it can be a lot harder than that because there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we have to do to, you know, get services in place. But, you know, if we're trying to break down in terms of, if we were to have a flat fee schedule for all these things, you know, how much that would add up to, it's not gonna be more than usually $1,000 in terms of, since we can get the forms filled out in an hour. We can do the initial visit for most cases in an hour. You know, the court hearing is gonna take, you know, a couple of hours. But, you know, we're not looking at 20 hours of time to do an initial setup. And I guess that's where I have the concern about trying to get, you know, $2,000 from the nursing home for a referral when that's not how much our fees are. So if we're trying to make sure that we're sustainable in terms of an organization paying for our staff time to do these things, I think that's what we have to look at. Not how much can we get out of them, that's not justifiable based on the time spent.
We're not trying to shake them down
Well,
here.
but that's what it seems like.
I think for-profits, you know, it'd be different for NPOs, you know, but for-profits, I think, I don't, 500 certainly is enough. I don't know if 1,500 is enough. Do we have a sense of what other county guardianship
No
boards
other
are doing?
GSB collects a fee from a nursing home.
None
Which
at
doesn't
all.
mean we
Franklin-
shouldn't, it just
Franklin-
means that it's not been done yet.
Well,
They haven't done it yet.
Franklin collects, has an MOU with a hospital that gives a lot of referrals to them. Because from the hospital standpoint, it's easier to get them out of the hospital and free up that bed that they collect thousands of dollars for every day. So they do have an MOU with the hospital. Because there are some hospitals that won't release a ward until the guardian's in place because they don't feel it's safe.
But the hospitals in this area they're releasing them to the nursing home.
If the nursing
homes are
home is
accepting.
willing to take them. And some are, you know, we've had people released to Woodlands, we've had people released to Kent Healthcare. It just depends on the philosophy of the particular, you know, facility. I'd like to start out, if we do this MOU for the nursing homes and hospitals, to have it be $1,000, because I think that's justifiable to me. And I think it keeps sustainability in place in terms of how much time we're spending, especially in light of the fact that for that same person, we will be collecting additional fees.
So we could start at, one option would be to put the MOU in place for 2025 at 1,000, see what the,
Impact is.
see what the response
Yeah.
is from the facilities. And if they're not even batting an eye, then next year we kick it up to 1,500 or whatever it is, you know? And we also can probably see if we're not getting referrals based on that.
Okay,
I like that idea.
Is that fine?
that sounds good.
All right, can I get a motion then that we will put an MOU in place for $1,000 referral for nursing homes?
So moved?
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then at the same time, I will do a breakdown in terms of, you know, an average case that doesn't have a bunch of hiccups, and how much time we spent, you know, at whatever the going rate is, whether it's $75 per case per hour or whatever, but I'll get that estimate from the other two, you have an idea.
If I can just mention, again, you know, so I mentioned MHRB, but it's not to try and, you know, protect my budget or something, it's to, you know, to steward public dollars. So we always want to exhaust any other funds before, you know, rather than just have the public dollars, you know, that the levies and the taxpayers pay just be used because they're easy to use. And I know you're not, that's not why we're doing it, but
Right.
for profits, I really think, you know, they need some skin in the game, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, one of the reasons why I do the PowerPoint, I have a specific slide that shows what every Ohio GSB's budget is and who their funding sources are, is so all of our funding partners can see we're doing as much or more in terms of collecting funds than the other Ohio GSBs. So yes, I mean, some GSBs don't collect from their Board of Commissioners or don't collect from JFS. So, you know, we're collecting from sources that other GSBs aren't. You know, we're adding things that no other GSB is making an effort to collect administrative fees. No other GSB is looking at contributions from nursing homes. So, you know, we have been expansive and innovative in terms of our funding approach in these other areas that the other Ohio GSBs aren't. So, you know, I think that needs to be taken into account as well.
Well, there's a current trend for, in government to, you know, do things differently. So I'm glad to hear that we're doing that. And I think it's good to start with 1,000 and, you know, based on your experience with the referrals,
Right.
see how that goes.
Yeah, and I think the referrals have slowed down some, too. I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe because the built-up people that needed them have now gotten services, and so it's eased off a bit. But, you know, we do only have 4 new hearings out on the horizon, whereas a couple of months ago, we had 11 hearings on the horizon. So that's, you know, cut in half of where we were.
And that's possible too, that we need to geek out before, you know, we hit full capacity.
Right.
For sure.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have nothing else. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up?
I do have one more question.
Sure.
In 2025, and I know up until March you're short-term staff, but what about looking at the volunteer program? Have you put any thoughts into that?
Yeah, Amy and I discussed this yesterday, and we may have additional staff leaves starting in June of this
Okay.
year. So it's not like we're gonna be at full capacity maybe until August or September. But that said, the volunteer program is concerning to me in that no other GSB is running a volunteer program, and in large part is for reasons that I've talked with you folks about before. These are very difficult clients, many of them. You can't send them out, you know, to visit some of these folks. So I have had some volunteers that have seen people in the nursing homes, whether it was Long Meadow or Gardens or Kent Healthcare. But I would say for the majority of our clients, it takes a lot of energy to run a volunteer program. You have to recruit them, you have to train them, you have to meet with them, you have to take them to lunch, you have to meet them for coffee. We don't have time for that. And I'm not sure in terms of the benefits, since we have to have eyes on these people ourselves once a month, that it gets us that much from a cost-benefit analysis. From my standpoint, I literally, as much as I love volunteers, and if I had nothing else to do, it would be a great program to run, but we're not constable. We actually have legal responsibility for all 56 people that we're the guardian for. We're just not a GAL that's assigned to provide ancillary services. You know, we have the legal responsibility, and so that puts a greater burden on us that is a time drain. So, because other GSBs have viewed this the same way, because of the time involved and what we have to prioritize right now. I just don't see it as something that can be implemented, Candy, and have it worth the time during.
So the three, do you still have the 3 volunteers that are in the nursing
One of them
facilities?
went out for back surgery at the end of last year. The other nurse that we have is still a volunteer.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Anything further,
Any other
John?
questions?
Nothing further?
Exactly 11 o'clock.
Okay,
Good
yep,
timing,
with
Amy.
nothing else on the agenda, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Cindy, second. Thank you. On favor?
Aye.
Aye, excellent. We are adjourned at 11 o'clock.
Thank you so much.